Hi everyone, I hope you are enjoying the best of your health while watching this video. Today we are here to have lecture number 3 of Microsoft Excel. As we learned few skills during lecture number 2 of Microsoft Excel, today again we are going to learn very much conceptual things in Microsoft Excel, the deep ideas I must say, and then we'll move to the task 20B of chapter number 20 of your ICT book that is endorsed by Cambridge University. But before moving to task 20B, we'll learn few, as I told you earlier, some deep ideas and concepts of Microsoft Excel. And the contents of today's lectures are, we'll learn that why do we use cell references. If you remember during the first video lecture, while we were learning how to type a formula in any of the cells, we used a product formula to calculate the product of two numbers, and if you remember, we used the cell references instead of the values in the cells A1 and B1. So today we'll discuss that why did we use cell references instead of using the values. Secondly, during the last video lecture we learned how to copy paste values. Today we'll learn that while copying and pasting the formula, the things are quite different in Excel. The third point of today's lecture, it's relative referencing. It's something weird, something totally, entirely new for you. And finally, we'll start solving the task 20B in today's lecture. So let's take start. In order to learn the first 3 points of today's video, once again, you need not to have any source file for that. So open a blank workbook in Microsoft Excel, and let's start our today's lecture by learning that why do we use cell references in formulae. Look, a blank workbook, it's on your screens now. In order to learn the first point, I'm entering few numbers in the cells A1 and in the cell A2. Similarly, I'm entering values in the cells B1 and B2. The very basic single digits I entered in these cells. Now I'm going to enter a formula in the cell C1 to calculate the sum of the values of cell A1 and B1. So the formula would be very simple. That will be A1 plus B1. Just after typing the formula, you need to press enter key to get the output in the cell C1. And now this time to have the sum of the values of A2 and B2, this time I am not using the cell references, rather I am entering the values of the cells A2 and B2, which are 3 plus 5, and press enter key. One thing that is quite clear here, that Excel returns us the result in both cases, whether you are using cell references or the values inside those cells. So for Excel, it does not matter at all whether we are using cell references or not. But today we are here to learn that why we prefer cell references over the contents of those cells. Look, In both of the cases, our intention is to add the values, this A1 and B1. Similarly, for this sum, our intention is to add the value of A2 into B2. In both of the cases, the results are correct. According to our requirements, we have got the desired output in both of the cases. Now let's go back and change the value in the cell A1. I am replacing 2 with 6 and I'm pressing the enter key. Look, keenly observe that without changing the formula, we have got the updated output in the cell C1. Now let's experiment it here. I'm replacing the value 3 with 2. In this case, we are expecting to get 7 in C2, but we'll have the output that is not the desired one, certainly. Look. Now let's understand the difference. The difference is, in this case, actually we are directing Excel that we want to get the sum of the contents of A1 plus B1. I'm repeating it. In this case, we are directing Excel to return us the sum of cell A1 and B1. This approach is quite different from this approach. In this case, previously we were directing Excel that we need to have sum of 3, which was the content of A2, and 5, that is the content of B2. So now, once the values are changed, Excel is simply following our instructions. Excel is adding 3 into 5. And in this case, Excel is adding the contents of A1 into the contents of B1. So this is one of the basic justifications that why we always prefer cell references instead of the values. During this discussion, viewers, I tried to make it clear to you that why we should prefer cell references over the constant values. In other words, we can say that A1 is a variable and 3 or 2 or 5 or any other value that any cell contains, it's a constant value. So there is a clear difference between using variables and the constant values. That was the first point of today's lecture, that why do we use cell references while typing the formula. So I tried to make it clear to you that why we should always go for the cell references while typing the formula instead of typing the constant values. Now we are going to see the next thing in today's lecture, that is copy and paste formula. Actually, the point is itself, it's not different. We have already learned in Microsoft Word, in Microsoft PowerPoint, and in Microsoft Excel too, that when you copy something, it goes to clipboard, a special area in our computer, and when you paste it, it transfers the contents from the clipboard to the place where we have the cursor or where we have the cell pointer. But in case of formulae, the results are a bit different. Let's see it first, that how this statement is true, that when you copy the formula and when you paste it, the results are different. Let's experiment it. Currently in C1, we have a formula that is equal to A1 plus B1. I'm copying it with the help of shortcut key, that is Control C. The blinking border around the cell shows that its contents are copied. Now I'm scrolling downwards, I'm moving downwards. In this cell, I'm going to paste it. That is Control V. The general behavior of this action should be that it should return us either A1 plus B1 or 10. But after pasting, you'll feel the change that it's not giving us the output that we are expecting from copy and paste. So let's do it. I'm pressing Control V. And astonishingly, the results are totally different. In C1, we have two things. It contains a value that is 10, and it contains at the same time a formula that is equal to A1 plus B1. But after pasting, we were expecting that C2 could display the value 10, or it could display the formula that is equal to A1 plus B1, but both of the things are different. It's displaying 7, and if you move the cell pointer over C2, you'll observe that we were expecting is equal to A1 plus B1, but it's returning us is equal to A2 plus B2. Mathematically, it was the output that we want in Excel, and Excel is returning us. But as far as our previous experiences are concerned, the results are totally different. This was our second point of today's lecture, that copying and pasting is a formula. It's different, and we have just seen that when you copy and paste a formula, it gives us something else as compared to the normal usual behavior of copy paste. Now we are heading towards relative referencing, that is basically based on copying and pasting the formula. So let's see that what do we mean by relative referencing. Because it's a very deep concept and you need to pull up your socks, make up your mind for that. I need your attention in order to understand this very deep and to some extent a new and difficult concept. To usually the people uh, feel they feel difficulty in understanding this concept. So you need to be very alert, attentive in order to digest this concept of copying and pasting the formula relevant with relative referencing. Let's see the behavior. Let's observe the behavior of Excel while copying and pasting the formula. The behavior is that when we copied the contents of C1, the contents are is equal to A1 plus B1 and 10. And when we pasted it here, instead of A1 we have A2, plus symbol remains the same, is equal symbol remains the same, and B1 it's replaced with B2. So let's understand that how it all happened to us. I'm going back to C1. Viewers, closely observe that C1 contains A1 and B1, the two cell references. Now calculate the difference. Check it yourself that how A1 is far from C1. If you closely observe, you'll come to know that A1 is two cells away from C1 in the left direction. If you are sitting in front of your computers, it means that A1 is on the left side of C1 and two cells at a two cells distance. Similarly, B1 is the next cell to C1. I'm focusing on to this point that how far A1 is from C1. Similarly, how far B1 is from C1. Now when we we copied the formula from C1, and when we pasted it here in C2, Excel checks it that C1 contains A1 and A1 is two cells far from C1 in left direction. So when Excel tries to it tries to replace A1 with any other value, it will calculate the distance from C2 to its left side and two cells left. And if you move it this way, look, from C1, A1 is reached after pressing the left arrow twice. Similarly, if you are at C2 and if you press left arrow key twice, you will reach at A2. So this is the mechanism that is adopted by Excel to replace or to update the formula that was copied, and when you pasted it, Excel uses this mechanism. So this is how A1 is replaced with A2, because A1 is two cells far from C1 in left direction. Similarly, if you press arrow key twice, left arrow key twice, you will reach at A2. So that's why Excel replaced A1 with A2. Let's see that how B1 is replaced with B2. If you place the pointer in C1 and if you press the left arrow key once, you'll reach at B1. Likewise, if you place the pointer in C2 and if you press the left arrow once, you will reach at B2. So this is the mechanism that the Excel uses to update the formula during the copy and paste process. Why this point is important? The importance of the point is this, that if Excel does not offer this mechanism, otherwise we'll have to type the formula ourselves every time. Suppose if we don't have this option and Excel does not do it for us, in that case, in the absence of this mechanism, you'll have to go to C2 and you'll have to type A2 plus B2 yourself. So this is definitely comparatively a lengthier method as compared to copy paste, and moreover the chances of errors are there because you are retyping it, you are typing it twice, you are typing it for the second time to have the result in the second cell. So chances of errors are increased this way. And consider if you have a huge list of values and you want to add them all, or you want to calculate the product of all the values in different cells, so how lengthy it would be. So this is the beauty of Excel, that when you copy paste a formula, it updates the formula this way, and this mechanism is known as relative referencing. So the gist of this discussion regarding the relative referencing is that when we copy and paste a formula, Excel updates the formula by calculating the difference of the cells which are part of the formula. Excel calculates the difference of those cells from the cell where we have the formula. Let me repeat it, that Excel uses relative referencing, which means that Excel calculates the difference of address of those cells which are part of the formula from the cells in which we have the formula. In C1 we have the formula. Excel calculates the difference, the distance of A1 from C1 and B1 from C1. And on the basis of this calculation, this difference calculation, Excel updates the formula in C2, it calculates the difference of A2 from C2 and B2 from C2. So this is what we call relative referencing. So viewers, I hope you uh, are getting the point which I'm trying to elaborate through this discussion, that the magic of Excel, the real magic, the real beauty of Excel, while copying and pasting the formula, Excel does a lot for us. Now it's the time to understand the concept of absolute referencing, and in order to explain it, we'll be focusing on task 20B, and the task 20B says create a spreadsheet to display the times table for any number you choose to enter. Print your spreadsheet showing values and formulae. Basically, we are going to learn two things through this task. One thing is the use of absolute referencing, and second thing, how to show values and formulae. So let's proceed further. I'm in the same sheet. I'm pressing Control A to select everything, all the contents, and I'm pressing Del key to have the blank workbook. Now, suppose we want to generate the table for the digit 2. I am giving it a reasonable caption as we did in our first video lecture. Auto fit to contents. Selecting both of these and using that feature of the fill series feature of Microsoft Excel. So this is what do we need. Now in this cell, we want the output that is 2. Why do we want it? Because we want to multiply 2 with 1 and the result would be 2. In this cell we need 4. In this cell we need 6, 8, 10 and so on, so forth. So coming back to the first cell where we need the output 2, actually we want to multiply A1 with A3. During this discussion, let's add few more things into your knowledge. Because we are typing a formula, we have to press equal symbol. Now instead of typing the cell reference A1 and A3, you can click the A1 cell. Automatically it started appearing in B3. Similarly, because we want to multiply these two numbers, press the static symbol from the keyboard. From the num keypad you can press it, which would be more convenient. And now in order to multiply it with the value of A3, once again there is no need to press A3. Just click this cell and you'll have it. So we learned another way of instead of typing the formula, you can just type the mathematical symbols, and in order to reduce the chances of errors while typing the cell references, you can just click those cells which you want to include in your mathematical formula. Finally, the formula is typed, so it's the time to press enter key. Here we have that too. Now, according to our previous discussion, what we are expecting is that when we copy this formula and when we paste it in B4, we'll have the output 4. But once again, we are going to have some weird output, something that is horrible beyond our expectations. We are expecting that the formula is copied and the cell B3 contains the formula, and the formula is A1 multiplied by A3. And we are going to paste it in B4 and by using the shortcut key Control V. Look, as I told you earlier, the Output is quite different from our expectations. It is not the desired output. Why it's happening to us? Once again, going back to that point, let's understand the difference, that how Excel did it for us. Basically, we have a formula in cell B3, and the formula is A1 multiplied by A3. Look, when we pasted it, Excel started using the same mechanism, the mechanism of relative referencing. It calculated the distance of A1 from B3. How can we reach at A1? One time left arrow and two times up arrow. Now when we pasted it here, Excel repeated the same procedure for B4, means one time left arrow and two times up arrow. So after getting this, Excel reached at A2 by using this mechanism of the displacement of the difference of the cell, the distance of A1 from B3. It applied the same pattern to calculate the distance of the cell, which is one cell left and two cells up away from B2. So A1 is replaced with A2, that is certainly not the desired one. Similarly, A3. In B3, we have A3. A3 is just one step away from B3 in the left direction, this way. So A3 is going to be replaced with the value, because we have pasted the formula in B4, Excel will move one step towards the left of this cell B4 and it will reach at A4. So A3 it's perfectly replaced with A4. We need it, but as far as A1 is concerned, A1 is replaced with A2, and that is what we do not need. So here in this case, Excel is using relative referencing, but we do not need this mechanism for this value only, that is A1. What we want to make it constant. We have two different approaches for that. One approach could be, instead of typing this A1 in the formula, you can replace it with 2, a constant value. This could work. I have entered it. Now I'm copying it and I'm pasting it here. That's it. This is what we are expecting from Excel, that in B3 we have 2 into A3, one constant and one cell reference, and when we pasted it here, Excel does not do anything with the constants. So 2 remains 2, and A3, because it was a cell reference, Excel started using its relative referencing approach and it replaced A3 with A4. That is the desired one. But once again, there is an issue with it. We discussed it at the start of this video lecture, that we should prefer using cell references instead of constants. So instead of using constant 2, we should actually have, instead of this 2, we should actually have A. And now the things are getting messed up. We need to copy and paste the formula, but we don't want to update this A1. We don't want to update it when we copy and paste the formula, but we want to update A3 with A4 and so on, so forth. So this target can be achieved by using the concept of absolute referencing. And how it can be achieved? Just place the cursor before A and start typing the dollar symbol. Similarly, move before the digit 1 and again type the dollar symbol. What does it mean? It actually means that we are directing Excel that if we copy and paste this formula in other cells, do not update A and 1. Let them be constant and apply the mechanism of relative referencing only onto A3. Let's see, is it working or not? Control C, downwards, Control V. Look, if you check it, in B3 we have $A, $1, asterisk A3, and in B4 we have $A, $1, asterisk A4. You might be thinking that if we are making it constant, then why didn't we use the digit 2? The problem is the same, that later on, if someone says that we need 3 times table. So suppose if you did not type $A, $1 and you typed 2 into 4 into A4, 2 into A5, 2 into A6, in that case, if it's not $A, $1, and if someone wants to have a different times table, a times table of a different number, in that case, you'll have to replace 2 in every cell with that particular digit. But in our case, just go back and change this value. Look, automatically the results are updated. And the reason is because we used the cell reference A1, although we made it constant by placing dollar symbols before A and before 1. Now you can replicate this formula by different methods. One of the methods is Control C. You can select all of these cells together and press Control V. Now if you want to individually check all of these formulae, you will observe that $A, $1 remains constant, and A3, which was previously A3, is replaced with A4, A5, A6, A7, A8, and so on. So this way, we learned the concept of relative referencing and absolute referencing. In a single formula, we used both of these techniques. By placing dollar symbols before A and before 1, we are using absolute referencing. And A3 is without dollar symbols. We are directing Excel to make use of relative referencing mechanism. Viewers, it's all for today's lecture. But before leaving, just add one more thing into your knowledge. That suppose if you remove all of these values and if you want to just copy paste it, you just need to, because it contains a formula. Excel understands it very well. We learned autofill last time in a different way. We applied it onto values, onto months, onto days of the week, and it worked different in different cases. So now it's going to work entirely different in the case of a formula. I'm just dragging it downwards and you see the change. We were expecting, because 3 is dragged downwards without holding the control key, the general behavior of this drag and drop is that it replicates the value. But in the case of a formula, if you just hold down this here by pressing the left mouse button and drag it downwards, it's behaving in a different way. So this is one thing more added into our knowledge, that if you drag and drop the formula downwards, it will update the formula by using the relative and absolute referencing. And one last thing before leaving, another tip, another shortcut method of doing this. If you just click this cell and if you move the pointer here, instead of dragging and dropping it downwards, I mean dragging the left mouse button and releasing it at the cell B12, you can just double click this crosshair. Automatically everything is done this time without dragging and dropping. This is basically very useful. It would be very handy for the longer Excel sheets when you have hundreds of values in the column and you need to just scroll downwards, so it would be difficult. The chances of mistakes are there. Instead of doing it this way with the help of drag and drop, you can just select this cell and double click. The question arises that why this calculation is stopped at this point. Once again, there is a technicality behind this, and the technicality is that Excel checks that what is the maximum row in this sheet where the values are ending, and it replicates the formula up to that point. You can use the same approach for this digit 1, double click. Look, the behavior of fill series remains the same, the rules remain the same, but the only difference is that it's stopping at this row. And why it's stopping at this row? I've told you the reason, that Excel checks that which row, which is the maximum row where the value is entered, onto the left of this column where we are double clicking. So viewers, before leaving, let's recapitulate the today's video lecture. We learned that why do we use cell references, or why we should use cell references instead of typing the values. We learned that when we copy and paste a formula, either copy or cut and paste a formula, the behavior of the Excel is different. First of all, we observed it, and then we came to know that it uses a special mechanism, and we call it relative referencing. What does it mean? Relative referencing means that it calculates the difference or the distance of the cell references from the cell which contains the actual formula. And lastly, we learned that in order to stop Excel using this mechanism of relative referencing, we can insert a special symbol, dollar symbol, before that cell reference. So that's all for today. Finally, before leaving, press Ctrl S in order to save the contents of this file, and the name of the file you should save it in the same source files folder, and the name of the file should be task20b. Hope to see you during the next video lecture. Till then, goodbye.